Zoning Commission for the Village of Vernon Hills, and we need to start with a roll call.
Chairman Morris.
Here.
Mr. Ballou.
Present.
Ms. Cotton.
Here.
Mr. Hesner. Mr. Heidner.
Here.
Mr. Gorog. We have a quorum.
Okay. First on this evening's agenda, we have no public hearings, but we do have development review of Rust-Oleum Corporation's request to amend the approved site and landscaping plan to allow for expansion of the west parking lot. And who's going to speak for the petitioner?
I am Kurt Hesner. I'm the architect for the project, representative for Rust-Oleum.
I don't know if that's turned on. Didn't sound it.
How's that?
That sounds right. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, you ready? All right. Essentially, this is the Rust-Oleum property. I don't know how many of you people are familiar with it, but presently this is where the three-story building is, the entrance that was modified previously, as well as the main entrance to the parking facility that exists right now. What we're proposing to do is to expand the parking from roughly 220 spaces to 261 spaces. I think your packet said 262, but with the handicap parking requirement, we're going to be down to 261. Where the extension is going to be, this is where the original parking lot was or is right now. And what we plan to do is expand it by adding around the west side of the property and the north side of the property. This is, get to another sheet that will kind of give you an idea of the area. This kind of gives you a better depiction. This is the architectural plan of what was existing and then what will be new on that particular space. We have two zoning variances that went through Zoning Board of Appeals. One of them is there is a 40-foot setback on the front, which the parking area does encroach into, and island size of 180 square feet, per island. And we received a 5-0 positive recommendation for those. In this particular design, and what we're representing is there was two. There was an alternate one, and then there was the base design. This is the base design, which has the landscaping, and the main difference is the alternate number one had a retaining wall, and we kind of opted towards eliminating having a retaining wall. What we were able to do was work out an agreement with 3 Hawthorne Place to basically expand our grade across and our landscaping onto their particular lot, avoiding the retaining wall, as well as to landscape the front area, as well as and encroach into their space and provide some additional landscaping there to get the proper grades and the screening that we need. I have with me tonight David McCallum, who I am going to have him come up and explain the landscaping materials and products and the thought pattern behind the landscaping of the lots itself, and I think you'd be better versed at doing that.
Good evening. I'm David McCallum. I'm the project landscape architect. The plan that we have to show you tonight is a plan that we believe will provide not only an attractive setting for the parking lot expansion, but also an effective transition to both the streetscapes and also the adjacent properties. Currently on site, to Route 60, there are a number of evergreen trees, and those will all remain. There are also some evergreen trees at the entrance off of Hawthorne Parkway, shown in this location, which will also remain as well. In addition to that, within the existing parking lot, there are some shade trees, basically ornamental pears. There are crabapple trees to the east, and a few maple trees and a few ash trees as well to the east. The plan calls for the addition of 42 new shade, evergreen, and ornamental trees around, directly adjacent to the perimeter of the parking lot expansion. Shade trees will be located along the west property line, along the parking lot perimeter, and then also a few along the southern property line. Evergreen trees are located adjacent to the parking lot between the northeast corner of the lot and Hawthorne Parkway, and also as a separation element between the proposed parking lot expansion and the existing parking lot to the west, as well as some additional evergreen trees along the west perimeter and at the southwest corner. There are a number of very small circles in here. Those represent new ornamental flowering shrubs and also evergreen shrubs. We also have a combination of some low perennials and then also some ornamental grasses. We've provided a buffer between the parking lot expansion area and the Hawthorne Parkway streetscape by the use of a combination of some evergreen trees, ornamental trees, tall evergreen shrubs, and then some low flowering and evergreen shrubs. Within the parking lot itself, within the islands, are proposed new ornamental pears that'll be similar to what's currently there, as well as a ground layer of ornamental grasses and low shrubs. And that's a general overview of the landscape improvements.
Dave, one thing I want you to comment.
You have to use the microphone, that's our one rule.
The one thing I want you to comment was the intent here of the screening of the parking on this side, but yet the transparency in creating the spaces, you know, so that we didn't really kind of block off the neighbor at this point.
What we have here is basically a landscape that will be continuous between the existing parking lot to the, within our neighbor site and ours through the use of a combination of some ornamental trees, basically hawthorns. In and amongst in between those are a low evergreen shrub, a dwarf juniper. We also have at the corner where much of the view into the site would be placed from a car traveling to the east. Large grouping of evergreen trees in this location, and then a front facer planting of some low roses and some evergreen shrubs. What we're attempting to do here is to get away from what would have been a very definitive wall type of treatment between our parking lot and our neighbors to the west. We've accomplished that by having a curvilinear planting plan, planting edge that actually comes into the neighbor's property somewhat. That allows us to provide, we think, a much more natural type of landscape appearance, one that's going to be much more attractive from the neighbor's viewpoint as well. Within that buffer will be a combination of some of the evergreen trees that I mentioned before, the ornamental trees, and then some taller flowering and evergreen shrubs.
So right now, I think that's a quick overview of what we're trying to do, and I'd like to get your comments and questions if I could.
Any questions, David?
How many? Seems this is like, I believe, the third time Rust-Oleum's been back for parking lot changes. Did they have that much excess capacity for employees inside the building prior?
They presently, right now, have 200 and I think 64 to 66 employees. This parking layout will give them spaces for 261 cars. And that is with a projection of growth of 8 to 10 people coming up over the next year. So we are presently not accommodating all those people on the site as it is right now, and are trying to make up the difference and be responsible and accommodate them.
Now, they had underground parking, correct?
They have it under the building itself.
They haven't taken away any of those,
No,
have they?
no.
Anybody else?
Are the ones underground, are they included in your 260?
Yeah, that's a total count.
Total count. I had just one little question on the, I think you got a variance for the islands.
Yes, these two islands right here and here are not 180 total square feet of landscape area. And again, to accommodate and get as many parking spaces, we squeeze them down, but yet have kept the same landscaping and actually mirror one of the other islands that doesn't comply across.
So what plant material is going in those islands?
Dave?
Right. What we've chosen there is a shade tree that'll be similar to the tree that's directly to the east, an ornamental pear. The ground layer is a combination of a Grollo sumac and also prairie dropseed grass.
I was just, with the shrinking of the size of the areas, will it support a tree, I guess is my question.
You know, we review that with staff. It doesn't meet your code, but it is a very tolerant tree for those sorts of urban conditions.
Okay, just a thought.
The other thing I'll add too is that in the stormwater design, on the old original lot line that's right here, all of the new islands that are added, they're going to be connected with drain systems. So they're not going to be holding water or drowning them at that point. And then they're going to come across, and then they're going to tie in basically to the stormwater system. So a lot of times where that landscaping, where people think like in this particular type of environment that we have right now, we're not having a rain and things are looking pretty sad as far as landscaping, it's actually where they drowned. And in this case, this actual stormwater design is taking that into account and accommodating that.
Okay.
And the existing islands, you're not doing anything with those?
No, these are remaining existing plantings, but we're matching very similar plant material.
And how about lighting? What, are you adding extra lighting?
Yes, we're adding extra lighting. Let me go back, see if I can get to the architectural. We're adding a double-headed parking fixture on this island, and this island right here. And we're tying, and then we have a single here. I think there's a total of 5. There's 2 singles and 3 doubles that are being added. And those are all being connected to the existing circuiting systems of the building itself.
Are all the new parking spaces consistent with the size for the village ordinance? Or are these
Yes.
size?
They meet village ordinance.
And no additional handicap spots?
1.
One additional?
And are the new lighting fixtures matching the existing lighting
They're
fixtures?
matching them exactly.
Okay.
And they are available.
You provided us what's captioned agreement for landscaping maintenance.
Correct?
I have a couple of questions about it. Who actually is going to own the material on your neighbor's property?
The material on the neighbor's property will be owned by the neighbor.
Because you're going to give it to him.
Yep.
Why is it limited to so long as Rust-Oleum and Hamilton Partners owns the 2 respective parcels rather than having it run with the land for both of this agreement?
Because in a way, that's what we were, I think, instructed to do. I don't know. I don't really know how that happened that way. I don't know why there's a time limit on it, but for the most part, I think it's under normal planning arrangements that they do that.
I also think that Hamilton was not willing to create an easement or something in there that would make it permanent.
They didn't want to encumber the property, I think.
So then who has the say-so on the landscaping that's on the Hamilton Partners property that you're putting in?
Well, right now, the way it's set up is that the boundary line, and let's talk about the maintenance of it, which kind of determines where you're going.
In part, yeah.
The north and the west boundary line, all the way through there, defines who's going to maintain all the landscaping, which Rust-Oleum is going to maintain it. So at this point, ownership, I don't think, is an issue except for what's on each particular partner's property.
Maybe I don't understand now. I thought the agreement was such that all of this new planting material, irrespective of which side of the line it's on, would be maintained by Rust-Oleum as long as Rust-Oleum and Hamilton Partners stay entitled to these 2 properties.
That is correct.
Okay. So who makes decisions then regarding the material that's on the Hamilton Partners property?
I don't think it's defined, and I think that would be between both.
Okay. Who do we go to then if there's a problem? If something dies and Hamilton says, I'm not going to buy a new one,
Well, that would go back to Rust-Oleum because they're maintaining it.
is replacement maintenance for this, John? From the village's standpoint?
Well, it'll be part of an ordinance, assuming that it's recommended for approval by the board. There will be an ordinance that will be put in place that will have the final landscape plan that will be attached to it. The ordinance will be granted to Rust-Oleum. So we would go back to Rust-Oleum and say, the plant materials died, you need to replace it. So that's who we would be going back to enforce the long-term maintenance of this.
And again, the defining line is the west bed line, because that's all the new material,
Right.
except for these 5 trees.
Right. Okay, so your understanding is this maintenance agreement, when it talks about that Rust-Oleum will maintain the landscaping improvements that overlap the Hamilton Partners, maintenance includes any necessary replacements?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else?
Do we need to clarify that
Or did,
in our,
or did that just happen?
We could clarify it as an additional condition if you wanted to.
Sure. Okay, anybody else?
the elevations between the property lines, what is that like there? Is that straight across? Is that relatively flat there?
It has a crown to it. And one of the main reasons why we did a lot of this landscaping the way we did here was because there was a berm here. A lot of that berm is being taken down. But we obviously got to grade it out to meet all the elevations on all sides. But there will be a slight crown to it.
And likewise, along Hawthorne Parkway, you started to say what you were doing there, but
Yeah, this is a lot easier because this is more flat at this particular point. When we take out that existing berm, we're not going to have too much elevational change at that point. The curb will determine, and they'll crown slightly again because of settlement.
and that plant material there is intended to be thick enough that lights wouldn't shine.
This was intended.
Across the
this-
street is the,
That's the senior, what's the proper term for that?
Hawthorne Lakes. Hawthorne Lakes.
Yes. This is set up so it's screened. Senior living. This is so for the screen, and it's supposed to be dense so the headlights don't go through. On this side over here, this is really supposed to create some spatial spaces with the ups and downs and changes in the color and things like that. We didn't want this screened like that. We wanted the views a little bit back and forth.
Okay. I have one more question. Your office received a letter from, or an email, but no one writes letters, Michael Rolfs from Hamilton Partners,
Correct?
saying, quote, "We also would hope the drive aisle could be reduced from 24 to 20 feet to move the parking surface further away from our property." Putting aside for a moment whether a 20-foot drive aisle is a good, bad, or indifferent thing, my question is much simpler. Has there been a, if resolution is the right word, resolution or agreement that that's not an issue with them?
Yes.
Okay. And how did that get resolved? They just,
We essentially told them what were the requirements from the village of Vernon Hills, that we are going to abide with those requirements.
okay.
And they were okay with that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, anybody else?
sort of getting back to what I asked originally, is there greater capacity for additional headcount at their facility here?
They do have additional land, and they do have additional points that we could do it.
But I'm talking internal to the building. I mean, do they have room to expand their personnel? Are they pretty well?
Can I call Gene Childers in and let him answer that question? Because I'm not necessarily versed on inside. I've been dealing with the outside. Why don't you stay put?
All right, that'd be great. All right. Gene Childers, Corporate Facilities Manager for Rust-Oleum. We currently have the ability within the facility to add, well, I would say probably another 40 or 50
People?
offices, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else?
Where are you going to park those people?
Well, Rust-Oleum has been a very, very fortunate company because they are growing despite the economic times and have done well. I don't think that they know that right at the moment. I don't think they have that in their mind, where they're going to go and what they're going to do, because I think the next step will have to be carefully planned, and then it would have to come back.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, as you probably are aware, or first stories. We have a standing motion to recommend approval that we would then vote on. And this evening, that motion would be to recommend approval of final site and landscaping plans, subject to the conditions that were provided in the staff report, conditions A1 and 2. I'm not going to read them all, B, C, D, and E, with the additional condition, just to clarify, that Rust-Oleum's maintenance obligation provided for under the agreement for landscaping maintenance includes the replacement, if required, of planting materials on either side of the boundary line.
We're okay with that.
As part, with the caveat, of course, that it's those that are part of the landscape plan,
Right.
not something else.
Right, that would
Okay.
be fine.
So we need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing no outcry, I guess we need a roll call.
Mr. Baloo?
Yes.
Ms. Cotton?
Yes.
Mr. Hesner, Mr. Heidner?
Yes.
Mr. Gorog? Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
This will be going on to the village board on the 24th.
Okay. All right.
Tell Gene we'll see him in 2 years for his expansion.
Yeah.
I said, tell Gene we'll see him in 2 years for his expansion.
Let me tell you, if they're expanding like that and they're doing that well, that's great.
For his garage facility, you mean?
His garage facility.
He has to go up now.
They can park in the Mariano's parking lot extension.
Or across the street at Salerno's.
Oh, that's right, yeah, that's right. Okay, I guess we have some pending project updates.
Yeah, and I provided you a memo with regards to various projects that are in the works right now, and since I wrote this memo, we've had some progression on a number of them. I also wanted to provide you a copy of the individual site plans so that you can begin to get your arms around some of these things, because you're going to see them sooner than later. First of all, the first set of plans in your packet is a site plan for Mariano's, the parking lot expansion. As everybody knows, Mariano's has been a roaring success, and has since this commission has seen at least one parking lot expansion, and now they're coming back with another. They're going to take 2 lots this time and push it out this time towards Milwaukee Avenue. They're going to add about 146 spaces. This petition, again, will require amendment of the special use permit for the PUD, and the public hearing has been set for August 8th. They're in technical review right now.
Now, the lot 7 was, I don't want to necessarily, was a little less than standard production parking lot?
It reflected what was approved in the original lot, so you're going to see the same thing come forth. Again, 18-foot spaces, 26-foot aisles. So what they're making is shorter spaces but wider aisles than what we require by the ordinance. So it's going to be, I mean, literally, it'll be a pick up one section of parking lot and stick it on the vacant lots. It'll be a mirror image of those. So
Now, is it anticipated that this would become the employee lot over here?
I don't think so. I
No?
think this is going to be, if they have employees parking up near the building, I would say yes, they'll push them out, but I think this is going to be customer parking. So that one will come forth, and you'll see it on August 8th. But like I said, I want to give you a heads up on that.
Are they going to seek re-subdivision too, to put it all as one big lot, or are they going to keep them separate?
I think they're going to keep them separate. We haven't seen anything that would say that they're going to consolidate at this point. And we would classify it by building over as a zoning lot of record. But they have not approached us in terms of doing a consolidation.
And I see they've got a sign in Lake Zurich that they're going to build there.
Yes, they are.
Wouldn't that draw away from the store?
It might, but I don't think so. I think they're going to draw from a different demographic area. There's a few people coming up this way, but if you live down there, you could go to the Palatine store, or you could go to the Arlington Heights store. Possibly a little bit easier because you could take some of the major 4-lane roads going there instead of the back roads to come over here, so to speak.
In terms of re-subdivision, I'd prefer to see them not consolidate and re-subdivide.
Okay.
Because historically, we've built these large parking lots.
Yes.
With great optimism.
Yes.
And when things reach a more mature stage of their life cycle,
Yep.
they don't always need it. And if it's a separate lot and it's not needed, it might be available for development as an outlet, as a business as originally was thought about.
Right.
Rather than trying to carve it up again.
Okay.
but that's just my, thought.
I have not seen plans that say they're gonna
Okay.
do that, so.
All right,
The second is the Buc-ee's remodeling. This is the mobile station on Ring and Town Line adjacent to the former Dominic's, soon to be Hobby Lobby store. Buchanan Energy has bought up 20-plus properties from mobile in the metropolitan area, and they're repositioning and rebranding those stores. So you'll see a number of stores that were, or mobile stations that were just straight mobile corporate-owned stores that are now Buc-ee's, and mobile is supplying the fuel
So it
for
still
those.
will be a mobile.
Exactly. Buchanan has bought the property here in town, and they are intending to redevelop it completely. You'll see on the site plan, they're proposing to demolish all the structures on site and replace it with a C-store concept, along with various appurtenances that are typically found at a station, vacuums, the larger car wash, air pump, et cetera, at this location, plus a significant amount of designated parking spaces.
Using the same tanks as exist today.
No, they have to replace those. Part of their purchase agreement with Mobil was to replace the underground fuel tanks, and they have to do that sooner than later. The plan that you see in your packet is basically what they're proposing to include. One of the things to note in this is that the canopy on this facility is changing. It's a 200-foot in length canopy. They pull it nose in pump station. This is, I guess, industry standard now. You pull in, you pull right to the gas pump. You can then pull through the pump and go directly into a parking space in front of the C-store. And the hope is that you will shop at the C-store in one form or another. And this is the industry standards. We're working on the building details right now. The building is going to be fairly modern in appearance. And we're having to work them over a little bit because they're used to building out in Nebraska. And they have a little bit different architectural standard out there than here.
It is Buc-ee's.
I know, yes. This is not, the plans just arrived, it's now in technical review. We might be able to get them to a public hearing at the end of August, but we'll see.
Because they hit,
That building is sitting where the
Car wash is right now, right. And you'll see variations for setback requirements and some other things. I've looked initially at their landscape plan, and they will be redoing that because of a misunderstanding on their part that we actually do like landscaping on the property, not just grass, so.
This canopy, because we've had these discussions before.
Yep.
And I'm a horrible artist, that's why Scott should do this. Is it, this is going to make great TV, is it this kind of recessed lighting, or is it this lighting that you see like across the street?
We've told them already it's gonna be recessed.
Okay,
Totally.
all right,
That's an old
Right.
standard over there.
okay,
They're gonna do LED stuff underneath, and it'll be much more energy efficient,
okay,
but it will be flush to the canopy.
okay. All right,
The third item is a little bit more complicated. As you all know, the former First Student property up on Butterfield Road next to the Prairie Materials site was a long-time location for a bus operation. It was a regional facility that operated in this area since the early 60s. That property has basically closed. They are using it for bus parking and training only, but First Student has had the property listed for sale for a number of years now. They believe that they have a purchaser of the property, being the Random Transit Company out of Mundelein. They are a short haul type operation, but they would park trucks and trailers on the site. It's a locally owned operation. They own, I believe, about 16 different trucks and would operate out of this location. As you may recall, the facility could have parked as many as 60 buses at the location. I don't know if they ever reached that capacity, but I've seen pictures and such where I've seen 20 and 30 buses on the site at one time. This location, because the tractor-trailer units are much larger than the buses, you would see a significant less amount of traffic on there. It's an isolated parcel located between the cement plant on the south and a storage facility on the north, a wetland complex in the railroad on the west, and then Butterfield Road, and then ultimately the residential on the other side. They appeared before the board at the committee of the whole, presented this idea, and the board said, go explore it. It's an interesting use. What this would require is a rezoning of the property, an amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow this type of use in some type of restricted manner, through a special use permit most likely, and then approval of a site plan and some other things that would have to go on here. They are doing their homework right now. I have not heard from them in probably a month, so I don't know exactly what the status is on this, but this may be an opportunity for a use to come at this location that is less intense than what was previously there, but also doesn't provide you the potential negative impacts of a large number of large vehicles, or in some of the questions I've received from some of the landscapers, could I establish a landscape yard there? And inherent with those types of uses are odor, and this type of use would eliminate that possibility. So, so it'll be something I think is going to come forward, although again, I have not heard from them in over a month. So we'll see how that goes.
Would you like require, if it were to be something that the tractor trailers and all that, that would have some sort of a wall structure like Prairie Materials put up?
You know, initially, I'm not sure that it's necessary. I mean, we haven't talked a lot about that. We did talk about enhancing the landscaping along the road. We've also talked to them about removing some of the parking in front of the fences, that between the fence and Butterfield Road, and now how that might occur to enhance the overall landscaping. We've also talked to them about replacing the existing cyclone fence out there with some type of material. Maybe it's additional new slats that go in there, or maybe it's a different kind of fence material. I think they probably will want to maintain the cyclone fence because of durability.
While we're on this discussion of Prairie, are they still in business?
Absolutely, they
I
are.
don't see a whole lot of trucks moving in and out of there.
Not a lot of concrete work going in this area, at least. They are still in operation. They've actually started, I think they were talking about modernizing their plant and doing some plant work on the site that they've been talking about 6-7 years ago. So
As you peek behind the walls, you don't see many vehicles back there.
there's not a lot of dust coming out of there right now. So
Does this random transit, it's like a transfer station that what they're looking for? So is this going to be a 24-hour operation?
What they've described is it is not a 24-hour operation. Drivers arrive at 6-ish or so, they go out on the road, they come back, and it's closed. The only thing that they said that could go on overnight could be maintenance on vehicles inside the facility. They did maintenance on the buses there previously, like that. And then the other thing is that they may actually build a small warehouse on that site that would be used to transfer materials or house them while you're working on your truck. So, and then the final, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The northern part of that lot, is that the end of the village
It is.
line there?
Yeah, that's the village of Mundelein.
And what's, the
That,
detention area is in Mundelein?
actually, I don't think that's detention. That's a wetland complex that was developed through time.
And what village is that in?
Mundelein.
That's Mundelein.
Yep.
And there's like a little one,
The storage facility actually extended their parking area to wrap around this property, and they store boats and large RVs and things like that in that parking area.
and once again, that's Mundelein.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
So.
Right.
And then the final item is the Oaks of Vernon Hills. This is a proposed multifamily project on the former Kelly's Day Camp property. Kinsey Real Estate, working with Hamilton Partners, who is the owner of the property, is proposing to locate 304 luxury apartment units on this property. They have been working on this project now for a number of months, and the plan has actually refined itself to what you see in here today. We are working with them right now to find a secondary access point out of this. It most likely, what we're hoping that we'll see is that a secondary access point will go basically out behind Building 10, which is right off of Route 45, and go easterly into Corporate Woods across a piece of vacant property. It's a combination of apartment units and also townhome units. The lighter tan units that you see on your plan are the townhome style units. Like the best I can equate them to are the townhome units that were built in the TIF district. Very similar, a little bit smaller. In fact, the guys who were involved with building those units are now Kinsey Real Estate. And then the other units are 32, they're apartment units, 256 flat units to be exact, and there'll be a 3 or 4 story configuration. They have elevators, but it is a market rate apartment project that is being proposed for this location.
How many stories did you say there were?
I'm sorry?
How many stories did you say there were?
It could be 3, could be 4. Right now, they're still working on it. They'll also have a common clubhouse facility with a pool and an activity area in there, trail system throughout the project. It is geared towards the market rate renters. It's not subsidized housing, low-income housing. It is, and they won't have the elements of those incorporated in this development. They feel that this project will serve the corporate areas in and around Vernon Hills, the Buffalo Grove areas and the like. It allows what is a very strong residential market right now to continue in our area, that being market rate rental, the market rate rental market that's out there and currently being, which is currently very active today. I wanted to just kind of give you guys a heads up on this project. They're going to come back before the board to answer some questions about some of the traffic that might be generated and how it might impact Route 45. And then the board is in all likelihood going to direct them into technical review with, at some point, them coming back before the commission for a public hearing that will require abandonment of the previous PUD, rezoning of the property, approval of a new PUD with certain variation potentials, and any number of other things that may go along with that that are unknown at this point.
Do we have any additional information on IDOT's plans with 45, other than it's on a project list? Phase 1 is nearly complete in terms of the design. I know there is some money that has been budgeted to go into the next phase, but it's very limited from what I understand. And in terms of a construction idea, probably not before any of us retire. That would be my guess. So, it's unfortunate. The improvement figures I've seen were originally about 50 million to do it, is now up to over 70 million to do the road improvement, and that extends from Milwaukee all the way into Mundelein. Mm-hmm. They've actually, the village engineer has actually met with IDOT and talked with them about this project, and the traffic study, which Kinsey performed, and it was a full traffic study, said putting a traffic signal at the entrance of this development would actually be more detrimental to the existing traffic out there than a help. It would not create the necessary breaks. In fact, it would gum up the traffic on Route 45 more than it is right now. These people will never get out in the morning or evening.
Well, they'll be right turners and go into Corporate Woods. Right. Or if we get the back door out of here, right, which is what we're working with them on, then they have a couple of options. More likely, again, to go to Milwaukee Avenue and then take the direction out. If we can get the back door in here also, fire access, emergency access here becomes literally 30 seconds from out of the station to wherever they need to go in this project. So there's a lot of positives to that. It's really a matter of, is the developer able to get
This is in the Lincolnshire Fair District?
Correct. And Lincolnshire's new fire station up at the is right around the corner. So, I mean, it's really great. And then you could do some cross-marketing with the health club up there and do some other interesting things there that makes it a lot more palatable the back door on this one. So, again, this will be coming before you at some point, although I can't tell you when. Maybe we might have a public hearing by the end of the year. It just depends on how quickly they can get their technical review work done and the like. So, like I said, I wanted to just provide these to you as information and give you a chance to think about it. Just as another reminder, we have our joint meeting next week with the village board to look over the details, architectural details and signage details specifically for the mall expansion or remodeling project. We're going to be focusing in that meeting on architecture and signage because, quite honestly, the impact to the site is fairly small and really is pretty much a no-brainer. But it's what's the building going to look like, what are the materials, what are the colors, how's the lighting going to affect the building, and then the supersized signage package that they're bringing forth, not only to provide additional wayfinding in site, but they're also providing LED type signage now throughout the site that will, I mean, it will really change the landscape in the village in terms of how signage is put on buildings and what ultimately is advertised at those locations. So the village attorney will be there. We'll have a little bit of a discussion about on-site versus off-site advertising and what we can and can't do. And also talk about, you know, precedent setting. I mean, one of the items we're looking at right now is a 48-foot pylon sign that has a 13 by 18 LED panel on it. And that would be within 300 feet of the intersection of Route 60 in Milwaukee. 48 feet tall. When you're driving, if you're on Route 60 and you're east of Milwaukee and you drive through the intersection going westbound on Town Line, the entrance to the mall at Verizon and Qdoba, there is a light pole at that on Westfield's property. It is 7 feet taller than that light pole. So that'll kind of give you a sense in terms of the scale that they're talking about.
It's going to be taller than the snowman.
Almost. But nobody will steal that.
Right.
So, so just keep that in mind as you're looking. I mean, that is the trend in mall redevelopment, and they do use it as a revenue source because they charge, or they do advertising on it. And that will be one of the things that the village attorney will talk with you about.
Have they picked a movie company yet?
They're still working with AMC.
AMC, how they?
Yeah. So I don't believe that's been signed off yet, but that's who they're working
I don't know if you've seen the plans, but does it connect into the mall?
Yes.
It does, okay.
Yep, sure does. That's a good point. I will make sure that there's a site plan in your packet.
Because I know, like, when you go to the one in Gurney Mills,
Yep.
at Marcus Amphitheater, it's kind of its own little pod, which I've never understood why they didn't shoot it into the mall somehow.
Well, and in this instance, it is a two-story building on the backside of the mall, but it is connected. The idea is there's going to be a entertainment-style restaurant on the front side of the building, from what we heard, and be able to transit through the mall and go to the food court and go out through into the theater. So there'll be restaurants on the first floor. The architecture, I mean, honestly, is spectacular. And I think it really will stand out and really will do a lot of good things to a majority of the facades on the mall.
That's on the backside, right?
Correct.
Since this is AMC though,
Front side of the backside.
what's the consequences of the other AMC theater or showplace?
We haven't heard.
Okay.
I mean, it could very well stay open. They could remodel it. They could sell it off.
Do they own that building?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I
They
guess
own the
that's
building and the property. So they could put it back up for sale again and sell it to a small company who owns and operates, stuff like that. So we don't know. So those are the projects, and again, the meeting starts at 7 next Tuesday instead of 7:30. Yeah. So the other thing I'd like for you to think about, I think we may have talked about this a long time ago, but also at some point, do you want to think about changing our meeting time from 7:30 to 7? So think about that. I'll come back to you later on in the year before we set the calendars, and this would be something that the board would have to amend the village code over, so think about it, and if it works for your schedules and we could do it, that would be great, and if it doesn't, we'll leave it as is and continue to move forward, so.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I guess all we have are just the minutes. So we need to vote to approve the minutes of the May 16th, 2012 meeting. We need a second for that,
I'll
unless there's any
second.
comments? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay,
thank you.
and I think we just have a motion to adjourn. We need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed to that? We're adjourned. Good night.
Thank you.